Yes, a very good evening to you tuned into UBC TV. We thank you so much for following all our programs and welcome to this week's edition of One-on-One with Michael Jordan Lukomwa. Like I always say, we discuss variety, and as long as the issue is that pertinent, you'll have it discussed on this program for your own good, the good of our community, family, and the general public. Now, the world is grappling with the issue of refugees, and Uganda is among those countries that are hosting a big number of them. As we speak, a whole 1.7 million people are in Uganda being hosted as refugees. That is according to statistics by November, October 2024. Among these people, there are those of different nature, but among them, we have people with special needs, and those are people living with disabilities. What kind of a life do they live in these camps or as refugees? What kind of challenges do they face, and how much need or assistance do they need in order to be enjoying life like the rest of their fellow refugees or colleagues in the refugee camps, or even anyone not in a refugee camp? We're going to talk to people that are in the line of seeing that they give a hand to these kind of people, and what kind of help are they giving, or how much are they coming in with to see that people like this also have a life to enjoy. I have a lady, she comes from an organization called Access Israel. Her name is Shelley Rom, and she's the Vice President International Affairs in that organization, Access Israel. They're partnering with Tunaweza, another organization based here in Uganda, to say that they give a hand to refugees, especially those living with disabilities. Shelley, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing?
I'm wonderful.
I have information this is your first time in Uganda.
It is the first time I'm visiting Uganda, but definitely not the last time.
Okay. Definitely not the last time.
Definitely.
What is that supposed to mean?
It means that this was and still is an amazing experience.
Okay.
Seeing the life, the vibes here, the people, the energy, the communication.
Yes.
This is something that is truly one of a kind.
Okay. Now, what is your view about the general perspective of the issue of refugees? Let us start our perspective globally, as a global problem. What do you make of it?
For us, you know, the issue of refugees, it is a global issue, but it's different in every country, in every continent.
Yes.
And in accessibility terms, we see this issue as something that is no different than other accessibility issues. Okay, so there are refugees. They are sheltered at different countries, and we, as an organization that support accessibility and equality, see it like everybody needs to have the same opportunities. Now, the base is different,
Okay.
but we want to make sure they receive whatever they can.
How about in Uganda? How much information have you gathered in as far as the issue of refugees being handled in Uganda? We are among those African countries that are hosting the biggest numbers of refugees.
Yeah.
What have you gathered about Uganda, and especially in as far as hosting refugees is concerned? I have even heard you have visited one of the camps. What kind of information do you have, and how would you describe the situation, the state of affairs of refugees that are hosted in Uganda?
So I visited Bidi, the refugee camp, and the experience was that there are spaces and there are facilities. It's like every zone is a city by itself. They receive facilities like healthcare, like education. They are, while traveling there, I was amazed by the fact that everybody is smiling, the kids are playing, the vibes are very good. I know that it's not optimistic, but it's a solution for them, and it supports them and provide them valuable things, housing, community.
Okay. Let's talk about the refugees, those living with disabilities. What kind of a state of life are they living?
People with disabilities in general, public, before I will speak about refugees, they are the largest minority in the world. This is how the UN define them. And by that, it means that there are no equal opportunities. Now, when we're talking about this minority, we're talking about among 15% of the population.
Yes.
And even more so. And in refugee camps, where the conditions are different and the facilities are different, the state of people with disabilities is different. They are not receiving the same opportunities like everyone else. To go to school where you cannot go by wheelchair, to study if you cannot see, to receive medical information if you cannot hear. People with disabilities are facing a lot of difficulties and challenges. And we need to remember that refugees are coming from a harsh reality. For example, in Bidi Bidi, the people that came from South Sudan came from war, came from a situation that triggers a lot of the times mental disabilities, mental challenges. And this is something that also needs to be addressed.
In Bidi Bidi, where you have at least visited, what kind of specific unique challenges have you identified or looked at amongst the refugees living with disabilities?
So the ability to
Those
go...
outstanding ones.
Yeah. So well, I must say that we didn't meet with a lot of people with disabilities yesterday.
Okay.
But when I'm talking about the main issues, I'm talking about reaching from one place to another. I'm talking about participants in the training that we held for the humanitarian teams that shared with us that people with disabilities are not receiving the same opportunities because they can't, because they cannot go. Physical accessibility, because the services are not accessible for them. We need to remember that accessibility should always be in mind.
Equally and equitably distributed to whoever needs it.
Yeah. The idea is, when we're talking in accessibility terms, is personal adjustments, making sure that if a student, for example, is with a disability, he can also come to school like everyone else. He can also study in class. Equal opportunities according to your specific needs.
What do you think explains the persistence of these challenges, especially among the refugees living with disabilities, even as we have efforts by government, civil society organizations, international community? There are so many kind of hands that come in to give a hand, but the challenges are persistent. What do you think explains the persistence?
I cannot say for sure, but I could say that when we're talking in global terms, prejudice, stigma of people with disabilities, thinking that they cannot do the same like everyone else, this is something that exists in many areas. And that is why awareness is crucial, because once we understand that these are people and their disability does not define them, they can do whatever they want, they can reach whatever achievements that they are dreaming of. They just need the opportunity. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that the society, the surroundings, understand that these are people. The only difference is that they have a disability. That's it.
How are other countries handling refugees, especially those living with disabilities?
It's a global issue. But there are situations where refugees receive certain services in order to belong, in order to do things. But I cannot say for the entire world. I can say that it is something that Access Israel, is discussing and promoting and advocating for a while now.
Let's talk about the emergency rescue training that you held in Bidi Bidi.
Yeah.
Give us a background about it a little.
Okay. So I will first say that Access Israel is an organization that promotes accessibility for people with disabilities worldwide, all types of disabilities in all areas of life. And one of the main issues that in the past almost 3 years we're encountering when we're talking globally is the situation of emergencies, because a lot of countries and Western countries are very developed in legislation and policies for people with disabilities. But then when there is an emergency event, suddenly all of the advancement goes aside. And that is why when Access Israel started working on emergencies, it was because we'd made so much progress in routine, and suddenly emergency occurs and people with disabilities are left behind. So it started in Ukraine, where the war broke in Ukraine.
Yes.
We received phone calls from connections around the world saying to us, people with disabilities are forced to leave their homes, going miles after miles to refugee centers, trying to go and get by, but they can't because the transportation is not accessible, because they cannot go all of this way.
Yeah.
They cannot go to the refugee center and receive what they need, and they left a lot of things behind. And we started to work on that. We said we cannot sit aside and watch these things happen. So we started to consult to organizations and volunteers, and we got to the refugee centers in the border of Poland, and we started to train volunteers and organizations on providing accessible assistance for people with disabilities. And what we learned is the power of the people out there, the local people on ground. They know the area, they know their people, and they can make a change. And we received a donation from the Nippon Foundation in Japan to continue doing what we're doing there. So we started evacuating in an accessible way people with disabilities from their homes. And we started providing humanitarian aid for people that chose to stay at home, so they will have whatever they need to stay there.
Okay.
And this is how the Purple Vest initiative started. This is a global mission. Access Israel is a consultant to the UN ECOSOC. We have a wide community of accessibility leaders that we're managing all over the world. And we started to promote and advocate for emergency situation and preparedness for people with disabilities. The idea is that in every community, in every country, in every refugee center, we want to make sure that there are people who understand the challenges of people with disabilities in their communities, what they're facing generally and also in emergency situations, and how to provide assistance, how to prepare to different emergencies while taking under consideration the needs of people with disabilities to make sure that no one is left behind.
With reference to the case you mentioned in Ukraine, what do the results that you registered read? The kind of trainings that we provided and the rest, my focus is on the responses that you got. How positive were they in as far as your service is concerned?
It was amazing. We received amazing feedbacks, starting from refugee centers, where the organizations and the volunteers got trained on understanding people with disabilities and their challenges, and how to communicate, how to support, how to evacuate people with disabilities. This was valuable. You know, there was this one time where a deaf person got into the refugee center and nobody there knew what she wants. How to handle. They didn't understand her situation.
Yes.
And they found the Purple Vest volunteers and they approached there. And in this instant, they understood that this is a person who cannot communicate because she cannot hear. So they immediately put an application, Sign Now application for sign language interpretation in Ukrainian language. And immediately they understood that her daughter is waiting to her at some point. And the train was changed by the route because of bombings. So she got to the refugee center and all she wanted was to contact her daughter. And immediately then we reached out, they communicated, and at the same evening she left to see her daughter. And this is the power of the Purple Vest volunteers, the communities. Once you understand the needs, you know how to approach them. You have the sensitivity to provide assistance that they need, the special personal assistance.
I'm looking at the difference of the two environments.
Yeah.
Now look at the refugees that come from Sudan.
Yeah.
And the people in Israel or Ukraine. And their need, is it their need, or do the situations change approach of how helping these people? Much as they have the same challenges, but the difference in the communities and the environment.
Yeah.
Don't they call for different actions?
Indeed, definitely. And this is the unique model of the Purple Vest mission.
Okay.
We are not coming to places and saying, we know everything, listen to us. We learn the environment. We're using the communities that understand the needs and the terminology and the terms, the conditions of the people in their communities.
Okay.
And that is the synchronization that we need in order to give this the volume that it needs, to give the people what they really need. Because the ones that are supporting them are the ones on ground. In Bidi Bidi, the ones that we trained yesterday were the people that are living with there. They know exactly the problems. Yeah, and they can advise and they can work and promote and operate in their conditions. We're just the facilitators of the tools, and we've learned so much from them. I've shared with them yesterday how much, with every comment, with every insight that they gave during the training, I learned new things that I will take with me to next trainings all over the world.
What kind of packages do you give in the trainings, if we are to share?
So there are several types of trainings that we're doing. The idea is that all of our trainings are including 4 main pillars. The first one is information, learning about the disability challenges, about people with disabilities, about emergencies. Then meeting with people with disabilities themselves, because it's not enough that I will talk about accessibility. I want to make sure that they know and understand from the people themselves. So in the training, and yesterday it was an example for that, the participants meet people with different disabilities, because it's not just one disability. We're talking about many types of disabilities. So they're meeting with people with physical disabilities, hearing disability, mental disability, visual disability, and the idea is to learn from them the personal challenges and the challenges of the community as a whole. The third pillar is the experiential part. For example, during yesterday's training, the participant tried to create an emergency kit using gloves that limits their hand mobility, so they will feel what it feels like to be with a hand disability. Another experience that they've done is communicating with headphones that blocks their ability to listen. So they need to communicate without hearing while reading lips. And the fourth pillar is receiving all the tools that I need in order to continue later on, to take what I've learned today and to put it and implement it in my community. So they did a workshop on creating evacuation plans for people with disabilities. They thought of challenges in evacuation plans. They thought about solutions. And the feedback that we've received from them was amazing. I think, I believe, and I really hope they've learned so much from yesterday and that they will be able to share it even today, tomorrow, in their communities.
Thank you so much. Yes, we're taking a very short break. On return, we're going to expound more on the technicalities that come in besides the skill, because somebody may really know how to handle a deaf person, let's say, but an incentive may be needed to facilitate how they're handling this person. In such situations, what happens? Let's take a short break.
Do you hear it? Do you see it?
In Uganda, Tanzania.
That's the sound of business in a developing economy.
For UBC News,
Charlotte Amuge in Kampala.
Catch the weekly business roundup every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. only on UBC TV, inspiring Uganda.
Every marriage has 100% chances of succeeding. You know why? Because God created marriage, and God never creates failure, and God never designs anything to fail. Every marriage has 100% chances of succeeding. Is your marriage struggling and you're wondering whether it will ever succeed, whether you will ever make it, whether it's even worth holding on to? You got to tune into Unlocking Marital Bliss, because right here we provide the keys to unlock the bliss in your marriage, and you will be able to succeed. We've had testimonies, and lives are changing day by day.
marriage must be a discipline. It must not be handled like a casual thing.
As women, when we have the outward expression, even our form of respect is tied to the outward things that you do.
Some women now have working class. They don't know how to handle their husbands because the marriage has become like question and answer marriage. Do you have any tea? Don't you have hands to prepare it? Why have you come back late? Did I take your blanket? It's question and answer marriage.
Not any other place, but every Sunday, 3 p.m., right here at UBC, with the one and only Cyrus Rod, not any other.
Unlocking Marital Bliss.
UBC One-on-One, we thank you so much for watching, and we are still holding this discussion about the life of PWDs, people living with disabilities in refugee camp, the special way they need to be handled in order to see that they also access the assistance availed for all refugees, just like it is in other communities. My guest is Shelley Rom. She's the Vice President, International Affairs of Access Israel, an organization that handles such issues on how to help refugees who are PWDs. Shelley, welcome back from the break.
Thank you.
Now, you give a skill. How is it applicable in a situation where a skill needs facilitation of an incentive? For example, somebody may have walking difficulties, and I may need clutches. I may know how to help them, but I may need facilitation of clutches or things like that. In that situation, what would be the ideal way to handle, or what exactly has to be done?
I will share with you a little story that will give you some of my idea of things.
Thank you.
Because, and this is something I say in every training, a lot of the solutions comes from us. To create accessibility and to create opportunities, we do not necessarily need a lot of budgets. For example, yesterday I shared with the friends from Bidi refugee camp a story of a friend of mine. She, as a student, was using a walker, physical disability, and there was a school trip, and she really wanted to go, and they found everything needed to be done in order to make it accessible for her. But a day before the trip, they found out that the toilets are a hole in the ground, and she cannot use them. And she went home very upset that she could not go to the trip. But remember, I said we need opportunities.
Yes.
Her teacher, who knew about accessibility, she came up with an amazing idea. She took a chair from class, turned down the seat, and the entire trip they went around with these 4 legs in order for her to go and use the toilets. And she was able to go, like everyone else, to the trip. The idea is to think creatively. And when an emergency situation occurs, this is something I've spoke to the humanitarian teams here at Uganda. Of course, in Israel, I have other facilities to create evacuation of people with disabilities. I have hammocks for people with physical disability, an escape chair for staircase. I know that it's not the case here. So in the training, we're thinking together what can be an alternative that is here and that is relevant for these people. And it came up from the participants themselves. They said, a mattress, we can use a mattress from their housing in order to evacuate. The ideas, the creative ideas are the solutions. Of course, there are means, and we wish everybody to have the means that will allow them to participate. But if not, let's think of a way to create this accessibility for them. You know, accessibility is a wide term, and every country deals with it differently. But it starts with sensitivity, it starts with awareness.
Appreciation of the situation.
Exactly. Once we know it, once we eliminate the stigma and understand that there is a person, and we know that we can talk to this person and we can find solutions with him, we can find a way for him to be included. And he will see that we see him, that we're trying, and we will figure it out together. But it takes work. It's not a one-day thing. We need to plant the seeds, and it's a process. Creating accessibility, it's something for the long term.
I'm looking at the disparities. You see, we have gender issues where we have men and women amongst these brothers and sisters of ours that need this help. They are men and women who, on that basis, may need assistance that is defined on that kind of a basis. Then we have disparities according to age. How do we handle those that are between 10 and below? Then we have 15-year-olds, adults, and the elderly. What is the technicality there on how to handle them, the different ages, the different people based on age, and the different people based on gender kind of basis?
So our perception is that accessibility is for all.
Okay.
But it is personalized. So students, for example, or kids, when we're talking about primary schools, we're talking about kids that, what is the main things that they are doing? We want them to go to school,
yes,
right? We want them to be able to play. So these are the things, playing with their friends afternoon, running around, doing things. These are the things that we're working on in these ages, making sure that they can do the things that we expect kids at that age to do. And then again, when we're talking about elderly, we look at them and we see we don't want them to be left alone, lonely at their homes. We want them to be engaged in community. So for them, maybe community activities in the community centers, these are things that we need to create for them that are accessible. But, you know, there is general accessibility and there is personal accessibility.
Yes.
We're talking about looking at the gender or the age,
yes,
and making sure that the services that they need to receive are accessible, but also that personally, they can receive them, because accessibility is not a one-size-fits-all. Every person has its own needs. If there is accessibility here and there is only one stair, for one person it's no problem, he can do it on his own, and for another person that's a problem. And then we need to figure out other ways, maybe doing meetings in another place, maybe provide him with the assistance so we will be able to come. There are many solutions, and as I said before, the idea is to think about them with the person so we will not feel left out.
You talked about appreciation of the sensitivity of the issue,
yeah,
that these people need to access the services. To me, it connects to mindset. And mindset now may be a challenge on their part and on the part of us, the people that are living with them.
Yeah.
So how do we handle it on their part? Let's start with their part.
With their part, it's easy. It's empowerment. It's showing them that we see them, that we think that they do have a future, that we want to provide them with the opportunities, showing them amazing people. Like yesterday, they've met with Victor from the Tunaweza Foundation. She's a person who sits in a wheelchair, and she achieved so much. And this is so inspiring for them to see that they can reach things, that they can dream. Opening their mind to it is the first point. If a student wants to go to school, a kid wants to go to school, but he cannot, showing them that he can, and he can be like everyone else, this is an opportunity for him. And you know what? Once we're starting doing that, society, their environment will see that too. And by that, we will start also educating their surroundings.
Now, mindset as a challenge on the part of us that are living with them and have to help them, but we are relaxing or we don't recognize the problem, that sidelining them is a challenge. How do we handle the rest of us? Because actually, the stigma issue you're talking about still comes from the other part, not from them.
Yeah.
How can that be handled? Or what kind of a package do you share with the rest of the people?
Yeah. So for us, what we did, and this was a long, long process.
Yes.
We started by training, awareness training, exposing the population to exposing the population to people with disabilities. We started creating events with people with disabilities who came, who showcased themselves, who shared their story, who gave the public opportunity, the communities, to experience, to see that these are people. And from what we did, we started to do also trainings for service providers, so medical teams, so education teams. Everybody will know how to look at a person with disability, and this breaks the stigma. Now, I can't say that in every place the same thing will work.
Yes.
Every community, every country have their own conditions to deal with, but awareness raising is something that can be done in many ways. For us, what we've started became legislation in Israel after years of doing so. And the legislation took parts of what we did in our trainings and wrote it down. Organizations, service providers must go through accessibility training to eliminate stigma, to know what to do when there is a student or a customer with a disability. And from that, we built this process.
We have agencies that give assistance and take care of refugees. Governments in different countries, like Uganda here, the Ugandan government, if we were to take an example, then civil society organizations. Now, for this case, we will look at Tunaweza and Access Israel, among others. What do you think they do wrong in relation to ensuring this accessibility?
I cannot say for sure what they're doing wrong. I can say as a general perspective of accessibility and organizations that are working there, that the more we connect and the more we work together in order to solve problems and to face challenges, this is how we can create opportunities. We can create equality. Because a lot of the times, and we see it in a lot of countries, there are organizations that are working on different things or for specific populations, organizations that are working specifically.
Because I'm imagining,
yeah,
if an organization is to provide food in a camp, how do they ensure that everybody accesses?
Yeah.
If they are to provide books in a camp, how do they ensure that even a person living with disability will? Do you think they are doing it the right way to score that goal of inclusiveness?
They have to go through accessibility training, even the basics, because I look at them as service providers. And service providers, doesn't matter if it's food or books or education or medical, etc., they need to understand their crowds. As I said before, it must be personalized. If somebody comes and, it's not even reaching to receive food, he cannot understand what is the food that is in front of him.
Yes.
We need to make sure that they are sensitive enough for that. And that is why we truly believe that training, awareness training, providing tools for better services for people with disabilities and the elderly, this will help in creating an inclusive society. These services are for all the people in the refugee center, in the refugee camp. They are supposed to be for everyone. If not everyone are included, then there is a problem. This is something that needs to be fixed, and we have to provide the tools in order for that to be fixed.
So what are your expectations after the training in Bidi Bidi, for example?
What I wish for is that today, after learning about the situation and about the unique challenges that people with disabilities are facing, I'm sure that they will have more sensitivity to these issues. But also, I expect them to start preparing. We've talked yesterday a lot about emergencies, about situations that people with disabilities are facing.
Yep.
And during emergency, a key element for good response is preparedness, not acting and operating at the same time. And I believe that yesterday's training gave them not only the tools, but also the sensitivity to understand the importance of things. So from my perspective, I wish that starting today, they will start doing changes. They will start preparing. They will start think of people with disabilities in the procedures that they are doing, in the services that they're providing, and start implementing it. Because the tools they receive, they can implement it today. They don't need anything else.
Being a refugee, I can imagine, comes with some psychological torture and psychological kind of challenges.
Yeah.
So how much do you think it takes for somebody to feel for another when they are in a place very far away from their parents, very far away from their family? What does it take for somebody to develop a good feeling or empathy for another?
Well, as much as I've seen, the refugee camps, they are, and here specifically, building a community. The people are together. The people are united. The people are struggling. We can't ignore that.
Yes.
But these are communities. And communities, we just have to start managing it appropriately.
Okay.
To provide them with the awareness so they will want to assist. Because the assistance, it doesn't take what they're dealing with, but a lot of the times it provides good for you yourself, for doing something good. Now, I can't talk for anyone, but I know that we have to start somewhere. We have to start assisting. And once you guys, the person that are in there, will start, you will learn the people and their needs and their challenges, and you will know who are the people that you can count on to support and to help, and who are the ones that are in need of support, that they're struggling themselves and they cannot provide support. They need this support. I told yesterday to the participants something that I'm saying a lot of the times. We don't need to go tomorrow and to diagnose the people in the camp and to see if they have a disability. We have to look at them and to see the challenges and start addressing that. And in every community, there are the people that are willing to jump in once they are aware of the situation and to assist. And there are the people that are struggling themselves. And we should understand where are they at, if they need support or if they can provide support.
What would be your message to the different agencies that are giving assistance and mainly assistance to the refugees, not only in Bidibidi, but all the refugee camps in Uganda and elsewhere in the world. What would be your message to them?
My message is work together. There are so many organizations that works to promote specific agendas, and that's okay. This is good, but this is a global issue. This is something that is everywhere. We're talking about more than 50% of the population, and in refugee camps, the statistics, I can assure you, are going higher. Understand the problem and address it together.
Okay.
Work for it. Leave no one behind.
What next on your agenda with Tunaweza?
With Tunaweza, we're hoping to work and elaborate our collaboration. As I mentioned before, this visit was supported by the Seneca Trust in the UK, and we think that together with Tunaweza, with the support of our friends, with working here, we can elaborate our support and continue to provide the tools and the knowledge and learn from you guys how to adapt to your needs in order to create better plans in Uganda and specifically in refugee camps.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for hosting me.
You're most welcome. Her name is Shirley Rome. She's the Vice President in International Affairs, that is Access Israel, an organization that handles issues to do with inclusiveness, especially to do with people living with disabilities who are refugees. Not so? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wish you the best. My name is Michael Jordan Lukoma with the whole team here. Wish you the best of the evening. Bye-bye.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
International Women's Day is celebrated annually on 8th March. It is a time to reflect on progress made, to call for change and to celebrate acts of courage and determination play by women. On Saturday, 8th March, Uganda will join the rest of the world to commemorate International Women's Day. The national celebrations will be held in Changwanzi district under the theme Accelerate Action for Gender Equality. The President of the Republic of Uganda, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, will be the chief guest. Join us for the live broadcast to witness outstanding women receive medals in recognition of their achievements and contributions to the country. Happy Women's Day.
This weekend on UBC.
You have come to this girl. You have told her, you know what, I don't have